sure are spaced out right.
I was gonna say, you're done. Okay, what's next on the agenda?
Well, be careful what you ask for. We might accidentally not give it to you. Cool. Oh, all right. Well, I'll get you up and down fast, my friend. Trust me. Thank you.
Kevin said he would be, Andy said he'd be quick. 5 minutes. And we're supposed to meet Friday.
Hey, Karen, is this live tonight? Okay.
For me? Yeah. It could be 5 if I get no
I
questions.
can't go long Friday, but I can.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
I picked it. 7 o'clock is my.
I'm leaving town Friday evening to go to grandkids.
All right, is that better? And I just want to point out I'm accompanied by our York County Library Finance Manager, Lee Smith. Thank you. I only have a few brief remarks to make this evening. I just want to tell you a little bit about some of the things that we've been able to accomplish at the library and some of the things that we're looking forward to in the upcoming fiscal year. As many of you know, and Chairman Johnson spoke about so kindly last month, we launched our new bookmobile with funding from the Institute for Museum and Library Studies, as well as reserve funding from the library. And subsequent to that, we found out from the State Library of South Carolina that when they adjust the counties for population, the York County Library has the highest total statistical output for public library outreach in the state, which we think is a fantastic benchmark for our library. Also, we are continuing on with our branch enhancements and beautification across the system. So at every library facility, all 5, you will see increased user experience with rearrangement of shelving, creation of new spaces, common areas, all of this happening without any significant or structural changes. Just ways to help us modernize and best utilize the space that we already have. This month, we also recorded our highest ever quarterly reference statistics number. That's a number we use as another KPI for the library and something that's reported to the state. So we had over 8,000 questions answered during that measurement period. We're also excited about the continued growth of our virtual library through services such as Hoopla and RB Digital that provide streaming content, ebooks, all kinds of downloadable and audio and video material that we would not necessarily be able to provide in hard copy, as well as the expansion of our hotspot lending program. This has been one of the most popular, most successful efforts that the library has launched in the past 2 fiscal years. We'll be increasing to make hotspots available for free checkout from all 5 library locations. And we also continue the effort to diversify our physical collection with an emphasis on books and materials for small business, economic development, senior care, families that have children on the autism spectrum, and some other specialized collections. With the value of a mill that we have used to calculate our budget, I'm very grateful and thankful to say that we are not requesting any increase in our level of support from the county. We feel adequately supported and wish to maintain our positive and forward momentum working with the county as our major funder. And with that, I will pass it over to Lee Smith, who will tell you a little bit more about our funding request for the upcoming year.
Good evening. As Jason mentioned, with the increased value of a mill this year, we are not going to ask for an additional millage increase. So with that being said, the funds that are provided with the increased value of a mill are allowing us to request a 2.5% merit increase that I believe matches what the county is planning to do, as well as cover the increased cost of from PIBA. It is also going to allow us to continue to expand our virtual library in addition to our mobile hotspot program. The remaining funds will be allocated to general expenses such as printing, office supplies, vehicle and operation and maintenance, training, travel, a small little increase for our audit, equipment maintenance, and public programs. And I would just like to point out that we also had an increase in funds promised to us from the Friends of the Library that will also allow us to increase our programming. So I would be happy to discuss anything that you see on here that looks significant to you, but you know, we tried to keep it as tight as possible this year.
Any questions from anyone? Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Their raises are gonna be based off their evaluations as well. It's not a flat raise, it's based off performance.
Yes, sir.
Excellent.
I'll
Anybody?
just say thank you for what you do. I know my grandchildren use the library a good bit.
That's wonderful news.
That's great. Thank you all very much.
Thank you
Thank
guys
you.
so much.
Andy, you are on the clock.
Yes, sir. Just real quick, just to follow up on a couple things from last week and to bring one other thing to your attention. The volunteer incentive program, we've been continually working and fine tuning those numbers as you've requested. We are taking that plan and the details of which to the advisory committee, which meets tomorrow afternoon at 5. We will also be bringing it to the Justice and Public Safety Committee as you requested, which meets at 3 o'clock Friday afternoon. The equipment replacement plan also is being reevaluated. We have engaged Fitch to look at that, look at where they're allocated, look at where the stations are gonna be, also to assess this Oakdale station issue for us and give us their professional opinion on that. Hopefully those, that data's forthcoming. I know we kind of tried to put the fire to them and get some information to us as quick as possible, and they're a responsive bunch. So be on the lookout for that. But the advisory committee will also be hearing about that tomorrow evening. So volunteer incentive plan and then the capital equipment replacement plan, both will be discussed by not only the advisory committee tomorrow at 5, but also Justice and Public Safety Friday afternoon at 3. The fire board budget, as you know, we requested last week a 6/10 of a mil increase for this volunteer initiative. We're there, that number's still what stands from a management request, but also we believe that we can reduce the 3/10 of a mil that was recommended in the Bethel budget, so we can recommend removing that one. However, I will stipulate that I would ask that council consider that be one or the other. I think having bodies is of utmost importance. So the volunteer incentive plan, I think, certainly helps all of the departments, and it will be, I believe, an effective program, but I know Bethel, with the rate of growth that they're seeing, they're gonna need that. Now, they can either get it through the volunteer incentive program, which would be fabulous, or through a millage of their own, through a 3/10 mil increase. But again, however council decides to go, and we can talk more about this on Friday afternoon, if necessary, then that's fine. I do ask that this particular request is a 6/10 of a mil increase in the Board of Rural Fire Control budget, and then reduce the Bethel millage by the 3/10 that was previously recommended by management. And so the last thing I want to discuss, Mr. Chairman, is I am not putting Riverview on your agenda Monday night for second reading. I met with them last night. There's been some confusion about what exactly all of this entails. I think there was some confusion with some of the board members that we could hire the chief and bring their employees on full-time, but they could stay aboard. maintain themselves as a board. If I was unclear with some of them, that's on me and I'll own it. But I was very clear with them last night that if they are not fully understanding that they can't be a board and also give all their employees to the county, then we will not proceed with second reading. We're just gonna drop it. So they're gonna need to take a decisive action, other than the letter that I received in March about the employees, but I need them to take a decisive action that clearly says to council, we as a tax board wish to remain a board or wish to not remain a board. So there needs to be some clarity for your sakes, and certainly for ours. I will say that this idea that I pitched last week about this financial consolidation of Riverview, Oakdale, and Leslie, that's predicated on this Riverview issue, and I think that's important to remember, and we can discuss in more detail. But the takeaways for y'all tonight is that we are moving forward, and we will be meeting with the advisory committee on 2 of those subject matter, and with Justice and Public Safety on Friday.
Just so I understand that, so you're taking the .6 volunteer incentive program to the advisory board tomorrow, then you'll take it to the Public Safety Committee on Friday, and then we can discuss it Monday night.
Yes, sir.
And we'll have the feedback from that committee and the advisory board by Monday night.
I would hope so, yes, sir.
All right, sounds fair enough. Sounds like we wait till Monday.
I've got a couple questions.
Yes, ma'am.
Just a couple specific to Bethel, but one about Riverview. What I maybe misunderstood what you said, but what was the relationship between having that board and having paid folks?
The idea is they have asked the county, that we hire a chief, that it be a county chief, and that their employees become county employees.
Okay.
So that's where the disparity comes in my mind, is the house is divided to a large degree. You've got an advisory committee with all of the personnel that's funded through that is now reporting to a completely different body. So it needs to be one or the other.
Okay, so what you're saying is if they have a paid chief and paid firefighters, they do not need, not that they do not need, but they can't have the board?
I think practically, yes, you could maintain the board. The question is really what's the role of the board at that point? Because
They have their role is oversight of the money that's coming into that tax district.
Sure, but those are county employees, and the bulk of their money is gonna be personnel costs that the county will be responsible for.
I just think I think everybody needs to be real clear on the fact that it's not an if. In other words, they could technically still have a board and all paid people at that department.
They could have all paid people. I think the point I'm trying to make is that my recommendation then, and I think management's recommendation is, if this is the route they want to go, then they need to let the county manage the personnel and the effects of that board. If they don't, or that department, if they don't, and they say, well, we don't want to dissolve them, then they just need to manage the department. But that's where you can't have 1 foot in the stream and 1 foot out of the stream. Let's just get in or get out. And I think that would create.
I think there may be some confusion on that, but I'm confused too, because I was under the impression, Michael, that that the chief did not want to be paid.
Chief does not want to be paid.
But you're talking about a paid chief?
This would be doing a search for a new chief.
Oh, so he's not even going to be there?
He is not even interested in it. He made that clear to Justice and Public Safety, and made it clear again last night to me and to the board in front of him that that's not his interest.
Okay, so basically what you're saying is that tax district is gonna, I just wanna be sure I understand
Sure.
totally, okay. That tax district is could pay up to $98,000 a year for a paid chief, and
Okay.
versus a volunteer chief who may or may not be the same one that they have now.
So to that degree, the pay range, if the county wasn't involved, they could set that pay rate. All right, so they could pay them whatever. But if the county's involved, we've got a rate of pay that y'all adopted that's part of our MGT study. I can't think of a time that we've ever hired anybody at the absolute top of the range. It's always towards the bottom of the range with, if you add, certain levels of experience or accreditations, et cetera, that changes that by percentage, but it's never that high.
Okay, that was the max.
Yes.
But the county would be making that decision as opposed to as a district board making that decision.
Yes.
Okay, so, okay, I just I want the people that are on that board to understand exactly that, because I've had some calls too, and I think they feel like they either have to have a board, or if they wanna go all paid, which they may support, then they feel like they can't be a board.
Well,
So-
then let me clarify my statement, and this is what I told them last night. I would not recommend that model. It's either all or the other. It's one or the other, but not this hybrid idea where all the employees and a chief is a county employee and a board still sits in place. I think that's gonna create more problems than it'll solve. That's my recommendation. Obviously, from a policy standpoint, if you disagree with that, that's the way it's gonna be.
Well, I mean, it's really up to the council person for that area, but I just wanna be sure everything's out there in the open. Because
Well, I tried to clarify last night.
Andy, you're not saying that they can't, as a board, hire their own fire chief
They can
and
do it
all
now.
that?
They can do it
They can
now.
do that now.
Yes, sir.
What you're saying is they can't let the county take over the personnel side and them still run a board and run the other part of it.
Yeah, I think that,
That's all or nothing, but
yeah.
they can hire a chief if they want.
Yes, sir. They can
have
do it
all that
today.
as they are and stay a board.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, so let's talk about Bethel for just a
Yes,
minute.
ma'am.
So, Bill Shanahan told me that, he was recommending at this point, after a few conversations, that he was gonna recommend that we only bring in the two paid people that were actually in the budget last year that we didn't hire. So we had already eliminated the extra, I'm not sure how many, couple paid three, maybe four more people. So he had already made the recommendation for that prior to the incentive plan, based on what he's told me. And so what I'm asking is, if that incentive plan, if everybody likes that incentive plan, what we would like to ask is that the $110,000 that was in our budget for the two people actually be moved back to where it originally came from last year. It was in our account, number 742. It came out of 742, which was, automotive, and it went into account 180, which was wages and benefits. So if that incentive plan, we like that incentive plan idea. But if that is passed, if all the committees and the chiefs like that, then we would like to ask that $110,000 that was for the two people be moved back from the one account into the automotive account.
Yeah, I think that would certainly be part of any motion that would be made.
Okay,
Yeah, I mean, I'm not in a position, obviously, to speak for Mr. Shanahan in his absence, but if you're so inclined to make that motion as part of the overall budget, unless Kevin can point out some kind of glaring error from a accounting standpoint, that becomes a policy decision that y'all can make.
thank you.
Thank you.
And at 6:17, Kevin comes to the
Good evening.
podium.
First thing, I handed out an updated millage calculation sheet. We've already talked about the two biggest changes there in the rural fire board as well as Bethel. Any questions about that? Okay. I'd also like to give you all, we had a discussion last time regarding the landfill. I sent an email out with an Excel spreadsheet that outlined the last 3 years as well as the top 10 customers for their various categories. Any questions about that email I sent out regarding the landfill?
I'm gonna be very honest. I got about a dozen emails from the county today, and my normal work, I did not open your email.
This was a few days
I
ago.
read it, and it said, maybe yesterday when we saw it, I literally read it, and it said it's there, but I've not.
Okay.
I don't know if anybody
In a
has looked
nutshell,
at it
it
enough to
shows
do it.
losses two of the last 3 years substantial. We're projecting a loss right now of $1.3 million for fiscal year 2019. It's not sustainable. That landfill ordinance that changed that rate is not part of the budget ordinance, so make sure you understand that. It's a risk to the general fund down the road if we don't address it or don't fix it. The biggest customer for the landfill, City Rock Hill. If you look on the spreadsheet, who's our biggest paying customer? City Rock Hill. A lot of the county doesn't use that landfill. Customers have the ability to drop off up to 1,000 pounds of trash a month at the landfill for no charge if they live in the county, okay? Your house, my house, something like that. So there's no risk of trash being put on the side of the road or something like that. But I just wanted to, any questions about that? We'll have a discussion when that ordinance change comes before you in more detail.
I just want to make a comment on that, Kevin. I did look at it, and I think.
Thank you, Allison.
You're welcome. I looked at it just for you. Actually, I thought it was another email when I opened it up. Anyway,
That's kind of a kiss-up comment
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
I looked at it, Kevin.
yeah. But I look at it kind of like, I mean, I looked at the users, and actually, that was very interesting to see who used it and how much. But one of the things that I think is important for us to consider is that I look at it kind of like a gas tax. You know, the gas tax taxes those that are buying the gas. So it's taxing the people that are on the roads. So I'm going to support what you're saying as far as the, or what, you know, David and everybody said as far as the landfill, only because the users are who needs to pay for it. And it's not meaning that basically the taxpayers are having to use it. It's like a business. It's in my opinion, it's kind of a business use versus a personal residential use.
Yes, ma'am, well said.
Well, this is basically a consumption tax.
Yeah, exactly.
If you're
Yeah.
using the product, you are
You pay
paying
for it.
for the product.
Yes, sir.
The only thing I'll say, and I looked at it, and I didn't look at it real hard because I didn't ask for that information. I didn't think that, to me, that information was not important for my decision on whether or not to increase that fee. Plus, again, it's not part of the budget discussion really, but it was interesting to look at who they were. But for me, it was more of trying to get that closer to a balance for the county, so we're not having to take general fund money in it all the time. And that's what staff, management's recommending, so I'm all right with that. And I will say, yes, I do use it occasionally. I've been doing a little remodeling, so on Saturday mornings, a lot of times I ride across those scales and take a little bit out there. And the only thing I had a concern about, and I think it's been addressed since then, I brought it up with David and a couple others, is a short waiver of that 1,000-pound limit per month for residents when a natural disaster type thing happens, because we have had some winds come through and some trees blown down and stuff, and you get a couple of trees in your yard, you can get over 1,000 pounds pretty quick when you're hauling that stuff off. And so that was something that I've been told would be done if and when
We
that
can
time comes
incorporate that
up.
with
So,
the millage
yeah.
change. Yes, sir. Good deal. Last thing, if there's any funds that when you look across that millage calculation sheet that you have any questions about, please ask me sooner rather than later. My goal is to have a third reading where we find out all the issues. I want to do as good a job as I can communicating to y'all what management's recommendations are. I want to be clear and concise. Oftentimes I fail at that. Please give me the opportunity to talk to y'all before we get to third reading. But I think this year's budget should be very straightforward. With that, I'm done then, unless there's any other questions.
Anyone?
I'll just say that I'm looking forward to public safety on Friday because I still have questions and concerns about that 6 cents of a meal. I'm not sure that I stated last time I don't support it at this point, and but I'm open to having my mind changed. So, but I have concerns about it. So.
Any other, sorry, yeah. Any other comments? Then we stand adjourned.